Welcome in, faithful. We had a season that started with a lot of optimism, but back-to-back losses have put that in jeopardy. Jose, there's a lot of directions we could go to start this thing out, man. Where do you want to go?
We want to go upwards, of course, but like you mentioned, it's looking kind of bleak here, especially next week. We know what's coming up. We know Arizona's coming up after their big performance. But just to kind of talk about and touch on what happened today, it started off great, right? The first drive, Jimmy Garoppolo started off 6 for 6, 70 yards, touchdown pass. It was looking really, really good there. I want to give a shout out to the defense early on in the game. They were getting to Russell Wilson. They were getting to Russell Wilson often, and he wasn't able to find his groove in the running game. The Seattle running game was just pretty much non-existent for the early part of that game. But I think it all kind of went south after that Jimmy Garoppolo interception. The Seahawks were able to pick up a little bit of momentum after that. And then Russell Wilson just kind of took over. And then the second half happened, the third quarter especially happened. And that's when you kind of started seeing the typical Seattle that gives us fits, the typical Russell Wilson that has given us fits ever since he got the starting job there in Seattle. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that fight and grit that we saw at the beginning of the game from the defense. I would have loved to have seen that a little bit more in the second half, but they could only do so much. That part of the team is just so banged up right now, especially in the secondary. It's just been injury after injury there in key spots for this defense. So it's kind of hard for them to go a full 60 minutes there against a type of player like Russell Wilson. And we kind of have to talk about, right, what happened at the quarterback position. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there after Trey Lance came in the second half, after what was an apparent Jimmy Garoppolo calf injury that sidelined him for the rest of the game after the second half.
Well, on that, I thought at first, like I think a lot of Niners fans thought at first, calf injury? What is that? Come on. You're just benching Jimmy, right? But, Jimmy Garoppolo after the game came out and said essentially he got stepped on within those first couple of drives there and is expecting to miss potentially multiple weeks to not even be available for the Niners multiple weeks, which would be a hard situation to absorb at quarterback because no matter what you think of Trey Lance's ability to make playmaking, we talked about it a little bit last week. What is our expectations if we're putting in Lance now? Is it for him to just learn and grow, or is it for him to facilitate a playoff run? And the Lance that played after the half, I don't think is ready to be on a playoff contending team yet. Now, he had his moments. He had his flashes in there because he is a great athlete. But really, if you analyze the game as a whole, for example, the 2 touchdowns, there was just an absolute crazy broken coverage there by the Deebo Samuel was just, there wasn't even anyone within 20 yards. It was still amazing to just see how wide open Deebo was on that play. And then, of course, the second touchdown was one of those garbage time type prevent defense type things that they were doing to Devontae Adams last week, essentially. That whole thing, too, my dad was texting me throughout the game. What was the game planning there? What was the strategy? Because you're down 2 scores and you're playing from the 6-minute mark all the way down to the 2-minute mark without any sense of urgency. I know that it was very unlikely that we come back and win that game anyway, down 2 scores, but you're playing as if you're just a touchdown behind in that situation. You have to pick up that tempo a little bit more. In fact, if you pick up that tempo a little bit more in that situation, given what Trey Lance can do athletically, I think you give your team a fighting chance. We've seen it for years what the Kyler Murrays, the Russell Wilsons are able to do once they kind of get rolling and get a little bit more tempo. And that's why definitely one of the big things getting talked about is Kyle Shanahan as a whole. The last 2 weeks, I agree with everyone. He has looked a little bit outcoached. He has looked a little bit outmanned. I know we've had injuries left and right, but this has been a continuous thing for Shanahan over his last 4 or 5 years in San Francisco. And now it's starting to look at his record. He's 7 games under 500, and this year isn't starting off much better. It's very possible we could go 2-3 next week. And at the end of the season, if this Niners team isn't above 500, it does start to make you put a little bit more emphasis on that coaching position. I know Shanahan just signed that 6-year extension, but how much longer he can go? I know Trey Lance may have bought him a little bit more time, but if Trey Lance doesn't show massive improvement between his first start, his first game to the next, and then certainly from 2021 to 2022, all eyes are on you, Shanahan.
No, I completely agree. I think Kyle Shanahan actually got out coached by Pete Carroll and that coaching staff in the second half, especially. Seattle was able to make some very good adjustments there that was able to get their running game going. Chris Carson was able to actually pick up a lot of big chunk yards on the run game. And that's something we also have to talk about here for the Niners. These past couple of weeks, the running game has not been there. Yes, we know the injury with Raheem Mostert, even the injury to Elijah Mitchell, who got off to a great start in week one. But at the same time, I mean, we have to get that running game going. This offense is really, really hard to play, especially at the quarterback position if the running game is non-existent. And Trey Sermon had a decent game, but we just haven't had those explosive running plays that we've seen in the past when we did have Raheem Mostert healthy. I don't know what it's going to take to get that running game going, but we're going to need it, and we're going to need it pretty fast here with some of the opponents that we have coming up. Luckily, we have the bye week after Arizona, but I mean, that's just one of the few problems that's kind of hindering this team from making any type of run here. The defense, that secondary, I know it's injured as well. It's pretty banged up, but at some point these corners just have to play a little bit better. And they were at the start of the game. But then, having to deal with guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for an entire game. I know it's difficult, but the defense has to do a lot better. In that
defense has to force a big play already. That's what really needs to happen. I mentioned it last week, but through the 4 games here, we still only have 2 turnovers on the season. And you go back a couple years ago for the Niners, I believe it was the 2018 season when Jimmy Garoppolo was down with the ACL, bottom among the league in turnovers. And that was a big difference of why their defense was on the lower half of the NFL kind of rankings. Then you fast forward to 2019, what were they doing well? They were getting to the quarterback. They were stripping the ball. They were very lively in pass coverage. And there's just none of that this year. There's no one making that big play. Fred Warner mentioned it after the game that he feels like he has to step up, but it can't just be Fred out there. Fred does a decent job of punching out the ball whenever he has a chance. He's always looking to make that big play. I need a little bit more heart from everyone else. It's actually a shame that we've had Josh Norman go out, because if you look at one of Josh Norman's last plays from a couple of weeks ago, it was him punching out the ball. There's not enough guys with that kind of mentality. Because against a team like Seattle, against Arizona, the Rams, a lot of the tougher games coming up, you just need those quick, sudden change of possessions. And unfortunately, those have all gone in the Niners, gone against the Niners. I mean, you talk about after halftime, Trent Cannon with that fumble, that brutal fumble. And it's obviously a shame because Trent Cannon, he's looking like he's potentially one of our running backs or top special teamers. One thing that I noticed throughout the game, you realize we had like 4 or 5 guys auditioning to be the kick returner. Brandon Ayuk was returning kicks. Debo was returning kicks. Trent Cannon was returning kicks. Mohamed Sanu returned a kick. The only one that looked kind of normal in doing it was Debo Samuel. And I don't want Debo out there for kick returns. I want him on the field, healthy in our pass plays, because, I mean, at this moment, just statistically, Debo Samuel is a top 10 wide receiver on the year. It's disappointing to see that the special teams is taking a hit. The defense is not making big plays. And now the offense is just going to be an absolute misbag with Jimmy Garoppolo hurt. Trent Williams is potentially sidelined with a shoulder injury too. That's a storyline to monitor, because that's going to put a lot more focus on Mike McGlinchey. Do we put out Jalen Moore, the rookie, out there? What is our offensive line going to look like? I know we lost Justin School in the offseason to an injury too, so he's not coming back. He's not going to be someone we could slide in. So this Niners team is really starting to hurt at tackle depth, especially, and that is the last thing a rookie quarterback needs for his pass protection to be in dire straits as he goes into, again, this tough divisional game. The only bright side is we play Arizona and then we just get a bye. We play Arizona, we get a bye. It'd be nice if we get this one victory. We're 3-2. Arizona moves down to 4-1, so we're only trailing them. And then who knows, if Seattle actually beats the Rams on Thursday night, that might actually be okay for the Niners. Kind of keep everything a little bit close if we're still talking at least making that playoff picture. They got a big victory today with the Cowboys actually beating the Panthers, because the last thing you wanted the Panthers to do was go 4-0 and also eat into that math equation a little bit when we're talking playoffs. Other things that kind of like caught your eye throughout today's game, Jose?
Not much after that second half. I was, I'm just gonna say it. I was pretty disappointed in that second half. But I mean, we can't really expect much out of Trey Lance. I think Kyle Shanahan did put it on pretty good terms after the game. He said it was some good and some bad, and that's exactly what you're going to get from a rookie quarterback, especially when he gets put into that situation, into this pretty big game here for both teams. It was hard to see the team kind of fall apart there in the second half against Seattle as well. I'm tired of losing to Seattle.
15-4 now for Russell Wilson. Yeah. 15-4 against a division rival, and 7-1 in a Levi's. Levi's. At this point, I made a little joke on Twitter. At least the Niners are playing for a road field advantage because it's clear that they can't win at home. I don't know what that is, that we're jinxed in our own home complex. Shouldn't it be the friendly confines? What is this?
Right. And a lot of that has to do with, the opponents, obviously, playing Green Bay there, that's tough. Seattle, of course, that's tough. But we get to play, Arizona there, and we get to play the Rams there one more time before we go to their place. So
win at home. That's what it comes down to.
Yes. And you're absolutely
great
right.
Teams win at home.
You look at championship level teams.
Yeah. You look championship at Seattle, level teams. They don't lose in Seattle. That's what they don't do. That's like, you go in Seattle, you're expecting to get your ass kicked. The Niners have to have that mentality when they're at home. They had this kind of laissez-faire attitude whenever they're playing at home, and it's coming to bite them in the ass. Even in the Super Bowl year, obviously they lost a couple home games there too. They lost a home game to the Falcons that year, letdown game. And that's just continued through. They have lost, I believe, I saw the stat tweeted out today. I don't know how much this is true. I believe it could be true. They've lost their last 10 home games. Yeah, there's some Nick Mullins and some CJ Beathard in there, but
that's just not good.
You look up at the scoreboard. Yeah, you have to start winning in Santa Clara, San Francisco, the Bay Area, whatever you want to call it. You just got to start doing that. Another notable storyline before we kind of close this out. What about Robbie Gould just getting marked out before the game? Mitch Wishnowsky going out there, he is special teams player of the month, yet he has to make these pivotal kicks. You talk about momentum changers. If they hit that field goal, they're up 10-0. That at least makes you feel a little bit better. And who knows how that kind of changes things as the game progresses, being up 2 scores and not having that sudden movement there. Luckily, they were able to contain the Seahawks on that particular drive. But I think it just kind of puts a little bit more pressure on them. And maybe we're not in this situation where we're leaving tied at halftime because of it.
No, yeah, we've seen the past couple of weeks around the league how important the kicking game is. It's not just, this kicker could get you 3 points every now and then. No, there's field position that goes involved with it. There's just so many things that go around special teams and the kicking game itself. And having your punter being your place kicker isn't what you want at all in any game. So yeah, it's disappointing to see Robbie Gould down. I'm not too sure the severity of his injury. Hopefully we could get him back soon. Because when you have a guy who could, consistently make 50+ yard field goals, it just changes the game plan in general. You don't have to even think about having to go on fourth in short situations when you have a guy that's pretty automatic from 40 to 50 yards. So, that's another. It seems like no matter what happens in any Niners game, one of the storylines is always injuries. That's what it seems like. It seems like the last season and some change. Hopefully we could just stay healthy from here on out. But we've been saying that for the past season. So, I'm excited for Arizona. I'm excited to see what we could do against this revamped Arizona team. It's looking kind of scary, but I think we give them a run for their money.
Okay, week 7 coming off of the bye. Let's say Trey doesn't look that great against Arizona and Jimmy's healthy by then. Who is your week 7 starter?
Jimmy Garoppolo, 100%.
Okay. All right, Faithful. Well, what do you think of the game? Drop that below in the comments below. We know, obviously, a lot of disappointment, a lot of sadness going on in this comment section below. But we're here to guide you through it. We're here to talk it out with you because we're feeling a lot of that same frustration right now. Let's go Niners. Let's kick the Cardinals' ass. Hopefully, if you're Kyle Shanahan and you want to prove you can still outcoach someone, Cliff Kingsbury coming off a big momentum game, I feel as though that's a get right spot. Okay, leave a like on this video, helps us in the algorithm. Again, thank you to our new subscribers, the people that are following us over from the Instagram page. Keep hitting that subscribe button, guys, because we're going to be back here talking Niners talk each and every week of the season and other important headlines as they come about. Juju Talk Sports, Jose Corral. We will see you next time.